Squid Game Season 2 has some characters I have a really strong opinion on. There are several characters that were so horrible I just have to rant about them on the internet.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
And then there were characters that were so amazing I just have to talk about how amazing they are.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Hello everyone, it's Mr. Troll delivering a ranking of Squid Game Season 2 characters based on how much I liked them. We will start with the characters I hated the most and slowly move towards the characters I loved the most. Now, the rules for a character to be included here is that they had to appear in Season 2, obviously, but they also had to have at least a somewhat major role. I won't include characters that only had like 2 lines ever, because then the list would get way too long. I will instead be talking about characters that had at least 4 lines and that I personally remember and have anything to say about. However, I have completely different things to say about most of the characters compared to most people, so this won't be me just regurgitating the same opinions everyone else has on the characters. Also, this might be obvious, but massive spoiler alert, okay? Also, I won't play that many clips and mostly show still images to avoid getting copyright claimed. Alright, let's begin. Okay, so what character do I hate the most in this whole season? Well, that has to be Pink Guard number 11. I absolutely hated this stupid character. Her entire side plot does not add anything to the story. I get that she will become more relevant in Season 3, and that this season was building up towards that. But if that was the case, then this season has failed massively, because this season only managed to make me despise this character as much as possible. So she's apparently supposed to be this defector from North Korea who has a child she needed to take care of, and so she was desperate and therefore was forced to work as a Pink Guard. Now that would have been an okay story, but unfortunately I lost any sympathy I had for her when she started to quote-unquote ensure the eliminated were eliminated by murdering players that have already been shot. I'm sorry, but I would rather be cremated alive or have someone perform open surgery on me than being shot by a Pink Guard twice. Because of the former, I would at least have a 0.01% chance of hatching a convoluted scheme to escape and survive. I mean, player 444 would have been saved by Gion and player 120 almost sacrificing their life for him, only for him to get killed anyway by this waste of human space. I despise this character so much. That scene where this character gets assaulted by 2 guys in a room is so satisfying to watch, and I keep rewatching that scene just because I hate this character so much. So the captain is apparently the one who saved the cop after getting shot in Season 1. However, throughout this season, the captain does pretty much nothing. He just goes in circles and is like, oh, this island, oh, never mind, it's the wrong one, and then he murders someone in cold blood at the end. He was just a disgusting traitor, and he could have been a redeemable character if he at least was interesting to watch, but he wasn't. He was not only wasting the time of the cop by constantly failing to find the right island, likely on purpose because he's a disgusting traitor, but he was also wasting my time as a viewer. And now we finally get to the contestants, and I have to start with player 100. The more you watch him, the more unpleasant he becomes. He is just a grumpy old man who yells, bosses around and forces everyone to keep playing, not caring about the fact that some players might want to go home. He was angry, despotic, and one of those elderly people I wouldn't respect.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
I love the young people.
Imagine Han Min-yo from Season 1, except with the charisma of the pastor in Season 1, and you get player 44 in this season, aka Shaman of the Sea. But what really makes me put her so low here is the fact that she just kept staring at everyone and everything in the most creepy way imaginable. It seriously felt like the directors tried too hard to recreate the dramatic chipmunk meme. I swear to God, player 222's only character trait was being an ex-girlfriend who got pregnant. She is understandably angry whenever she's around her ex-boyfriend, but those are the only moments she has any personality. When she was in Gi-on's team, she did absolutely nothing. She just mentions she is pregnant, and then it's all the other guys making jokes about it. They are like, oh, we are 6 players because of the baby, but what if it's twins? Then it's 7. But she herself does little to nothing in the show, and she just seems like a token girl. If you really wanted to have a female protagonist, you should have at least tried to make her more like Kang Se-byok in season 1. I hate having to put player 95 so low, because she seems to be a good person, but character-wise, she just felt like player 240 in season 1, except without the charm. I just don't remember anything about her personality, except for the fact that she was fearing for her life when everyone was voting to keep playing, which would make her death more tragic, I guess. But I still expected her to be killed off, because she didn't do much in the show. Also, she died pretty quickly, so there's that. Now, her death was quite heartbreaking, but that's not because of her death itself, but rather because of how player 120 reacted to it. Because player 120, unlike player 95, was someone I actually cared about. Man, what has happened to the cop in this season? He used to be so badass in season 1 and managed to basically infiltrate the whole system, and now he was just wasting the viewers' time together with the captain by failing to find the right island. Also, why didn't he tell Gi-hun who the frontman was? That would have prevented this season from ending on a cliffhanger. He wasn't technically a terrible character, but he really fell from grace since season 1. I'm not mad, just disappointed. So player 246 was the father of that girl who was harassing the shit out of poor mascots and then became unconscious out of nowhere. However, within the Squid Games, player 246 did little to nothing, except towards the end when he teamed up with Gi-on in the Uprising, which is something I do respect him for, but otherwise, he was just a forgettable character. Player 125 is the textbook definition of a coward. He got befriended by this girl who seemed to low-key have a crush on him, and she said the reason why she befriended him was because she could trust him. But then he breaks her trust during the mingle game, and he fails to save her when she gets murdered by the drug addict because he is too much of a coward. I get that people really hate him because he failed to save a girl whom they were simping over, but unlike my least favorite characters here, he at least seemed to serve a purpose in this show. I think we all know, or at least used to know, that one person who would do absolutely anything, including betraying everyone, because it's simply the more convenient thing to do. And in a setting like this, it only makes sense if at least someone here is like that. And player 125 perfectly played the role. However, it does seem kind of frustrating that he did not get any consequences for being a coward. Maybe he will in season 3, but I don't know. Also, some lunatics speculate he's a secret VIP, which I personally think is a really stupid conspiracy theory. If he is a VIP, then I am Santa Claus. Just like in season 1, the show plays with the viewer's emotions by giving way too much screen time to a random person, only to then kill off that person first of everyone. I'm obviously talking about player 196. However, even though she only appeared in one episode, she could have at least had more personality, but instead I can't think of her as anything more than a pretty girl. The masked officer doesn't really do much in the show other than temporarily replace the frontman. I guess he was okay, but I still prefer the frontman. I expected to really hate this character. He was essentially a crypto bro who fricked this woman and bailed on her when she was pregnant. However, within the games, he turned out to be a quite badass contestant. For example, he managed to defeat the almighty Thanos with a fork. He also sacrificed player 95 in order to save the other protagonists. You might hate him for causing player 95's death, but I have to respect him for acting so quickly. Usually people take forever to respond even if given a hypothetical question to how they would solve the trolley problem, but this guy did not hesitate for a second, making him a really good decision maker. Player 198 might have been a minor character, but his death really messed me up. That moment when his teammates screamed, "We're all gonna die because of you," he knew it was over and that it was all his fault.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
And to add insult to injury, he eventually won the minigame and started celebrating. But that meant nothing because he still had 3 more minigames to complete. Watching his teammates constantly berate him when he kept failing to hit the rock was like watching the Three Stooges if it was depressing. But to make things fair, this was the team who rejected the mother for being a quote-unquote grandma, and they picked player 198 instead, so they kind of had it coming. Honestly, this whole team died because of their own fault. And this is exactly what I wanted in Season 2 of Squid Game. Sure, the second season was more focused on voting and rebelling against the system, but when the average monkey-brained viewer thinks of Squid Game, they think of children's games and horrifying deaths, and player 198 and his death was perfectly needed in this season so that Squid Game can keep being Squid Game. After seeing the first 2 episodes, I expected Choi Woo-Seok to be a great comic relief throughout the season. But after those 2 episodes, he kind of became irrelevant and proceeded to waste time together with the cop and the captain. However, he was still pretty good, at least in the beginning. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And Kim Jong-Rae is a perfect example of the former. He might have been seen as a despicable loan shark in Season 1, but he really redeemed himself in this season. He helped Gi-hun track down the recruiter, he gave his own life to save Choi Woo-Seok, and he was a surprisingly entertaining character. It's a shame he only lasted 1 episode throughout this season. I kind of hate player 124 for killing that girl and for being a horrible drug addict, but for acting a role as Thanos' henchman, he was really entertaining. I mean, what the hell is he doing here?
Welcome back, my friends.
I liked this character at first. He was a really good teammate and a really good sport, until he decided to cower and ghost his team at the end. I get that he might have had some PTSD, but then he probably shouldn't have been so in your face about being a Marine whenever he was on screen. But I also understand that being a Marine is a very prestigious thing in Korea. But anyways, I liked him, but I would have liked him more if it wasn't for that ending. Holy crap, they actually managed to make a cool character likable. Usually whenever a movie or TV show tries to write a character that is cool and edgy and laid back, they just end up creating a one-dimensional stereotype that comes off as try-hard. However, player 380 was cool without trying to be, which is the true criteria of being cool. She was actually really sweet deep down. Too bad she got betrayed by the coward and then murdered by the drug addict. Player 007 gets too much hate. A lot of people see him as a coward and wimp, but he was no Minsu, aka player 125. He might have made some stupid decisions, but it was apparent he still cared for his mother and wanted to make her happy. As the mother herself said, he is a good person deep down, and I was actually able to see that within the show. Player 149 may have been angry and was yelling at her son, but she was also kind and caring at the same time. This is how every mother should be like. She also was first afraid of the concept of being transgender, which is expected out of an elderly person who grew up in a time when transitioning was not really a thing, but she learned to accept it once she befriended a trans person. Honestly, player 149 might have been one of the most realistically written characters in this show. I know all of the characters are supposed to be, but player 149 had so many layers to her personality and they all felt relatable. In season 1, Song Gi-yeon or player 456 was seen as nothing but the main character with plot armor. He was the kind of person everyone could somewhat relate to, but he did not really have any outstanding personality. This is however changed in season 2. Gi-yeon has more of a character now. He is now out for revenge. He wants to ensure nobody has to get shot by pink soldiers anymore, and unlike the other contestants, he has experience, because he has played these games before.
Played these games before! I said I played these games before!
Now a bunch of people are upset at Gion trusting 001 twice, which I think is really stupid. Do you really think the odds are that high that 001 will not be who he seemed to be just because it was like that once? Player 390 was someone I did not expect to care about at first, but he really grew on me. Unlike Gion's best friend from season 1, who was actively murdering other contestants, Player 390 was that loyal friend that was always there for you and that you could always count on. Also, he has a lot of great moments. I loved how during the 6 legs pentathlon he encouraged the other team to win, only for the other team to get killed anyway. He was just wholesome. For being the frontman, Player 001 was really good at pretending to be a player. I mean, there are memes saying he forgot he is the frontman when he was just vibing there with Gion's team and cheering for the other contestants. Unlike the captain, he had a lot of personality even while being undercover, and unlike Player 001 in season 1, he managed to still stay consistent as a character. He was someone who was seemingly having a lot of fun being part of the games, while at the same time psychologically challenging Gihan every now and then. His character is just so complex that it needs to be studied, which is why there are a lot of videos explaining his backstory. The recruiter might have only appeared in the first episode this season, but let's be real, he single-handedly carried that episode. In season 1 he was nothing more than the Train to Busan guy who was playing Dakji with people and slapping them when they lost, and I expected him to be the same this time, but no, he managed to be a really messed up supervillain. Throughout only one episode, he managed to troll a bunch of homeless people just for the sake of it, take out 2 grown men in a 2v1, have them play rock, paper, scissors and more. Then I thought I was gonna hate him, but I instead ended up really liking him when he shot himself after losing his own game. He may have been an insane psycho, but at least he was a man of his word, which makes me really respect him. If he appeared for more than one episode, he would have most likely been my favorite character this season. Player 230, aka Thanos, is the kind of character you don't know whether to love or hate. The short answer would be this is someone I love to hate, but that wouldn't be accurate. Gyaksu from season 1 was someone I loved to hate, but Thanos sometimes felt like a watered down version of that, and sometimes he felt even better. However, Thanos has a lot in common with Han Minyo from season 1. You expect both characters to be really obnoxious, but it all gets saved by the fact that they are funny as heck, especially Thanos. He served as a great comic relief in an otherwise dark and messed up show. You might have seen it coming, but Player 120 is simply the GOAT.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Seriously, how do you manage to make a character so wholesome and yet so badass at the same time? Player 120 was such a sweetheart throughout the show, while beating the crap out of the shaman when she was about to give up, and also a brave warrior during the uprising. And my opinion may not be valid, as I am a cis person, but I personally think this is the proper way to write a trans character, or really any minority character. So many movies and TV shows that try to include minority characters focus way too much on injecting people with all kinds of shapes and sizes into the story, while neglecting making actually likable characters. But I guess this problem barely exists outside of the US, because even though Korea is sadly still a quite transphobic country from what I have heard, they made a really likable character here that just kept getting better and better throughout the whole season. But anyways, that was my opinion on the characters from Season 2. Overall, Season 2 might have had its problems, and it might have not been as iconic as Season 1, but it was still way better than I expected it to be. I might make a video where I express my overall opinions on Season 2, if people would actually want me to do that. But anyways, that's all I had for today. Peace out.
So, you managed to collect all the Infinity Stones?
No, but I managed to get infinitely stoned.